Our movie revolves around a family that moves into a new house, only to find themselves caught in a series of unsettling supernatural events. As time goes on, they discover that the house is built right above hell itself, and the devil has no intention of letting them go. But before we dive in, if you're into movie recaps, make sure to subscribe and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. It really means a lot to us. The movie begins with a family of 4 moving into a new house. We learn that they bought the property at a very low price through a public auction, mainly because it once belonged to a family that mysteriously vanished in the 1970s, and no trace of them was ever found. The mother, Kira, is excited about the spacious home, but her teenage daughter, Ellie, is clearly uncomfortable. She finds the house old and creepy. From the moment they step inside, Ellie doesn't feel right. A deep sense of fear and unease takes over, especially after learning about the strange disappearance of the previous owners. After that, the family takes a tour around the house to explore all the rooms. Ellie goes with her father, Brian, to check out the basement, but as soon as Brian steps out, the door suddenly slams shut behind him, trapping Ellie inside. Terrified, she starts banging on the door, panicking. Brian tries to open it, and Kira points him to where the key is. He quickly grabs it and unlocks the door. Ellie rushes out, visibly shaken and scared. She goes to her room, feeling more and more convinced that there's something strange about this house. Later, Kira comes to Ellie's room and tells her that she and Brian are going out to buy a few things. She asks Ellie to stay inside and keep an eye on her little brother, Steven, until they get back. That evening, Ellie chats with her friend on the phone and tells her she's alone with Steven in this creepy house. Suddenly, she hears a strange noise getting closer, and when she turns around, she sees a terrifying figure wearing a skull-shaped ram mask standing right in front of her. But then, she realizes the terrifying figure is actually her little brother, Steven, who was just trying to scare her as a joke. She yells at him for what he did and asks where he got that creepy mask. Steven tells her he found it inside an old wardrobe in one of the rooms. When he shows her the wardrobe, she notices it's filled with belongings that look like they're from the 1970s. She then pulls out an old gramophone from the wardrobe and finds a record inside. When she plays it, she hears the voice of a man speaking in a strange language, almost like he's chanting a spell or incantation. The strange sounds only make her feel more uneasy about the house. Ellie closes the gramophone and tells her brother to go back to his room. She then sits down to watch some TV while waiting for her parents to return. But suddenly, the power goes out. Frightened, Ellie calls her mom and begs her to come home immediately. Kira answers and tells her that she and Brian went to the office and probably won't be back until morning. She asks Ellie to go down to the basement and check the circuit breaker. It might have just tripped and needs to be flipped back on. Kira also reminds her that there are only 10 steps leading down to the basement and tells her to count them carefully so she doesn't fall. Ellie heads downstairs while still on the phone with her mother, counting each step nervously. But then, something terrifying happens. She reaches step number 25, even though her mother clearly told her there should only be 10. Suddenly the call cuts off. Kira, now panicking, rushes home with Brian. They search the basement for Ellie but find nothing. They search the entire house, but their daughter is completely gone. After Ellie's disappearance, her parents call the police, hoping they can help find her. Detective Brophy tries to calm them down and suggests that Ellie might have just gone to a friend's house. Nothing to worry about yet. The next day, the police begin searching the nearby forest, but as expected, they find no trace of her. Kira decides to print and hand out flyers with Ellie's photo, asking anyone who sees her to contact them immediately. She then goes to the police station to check on the investigation. The officer tells her that he questioned all of Ellie's friends, and they all said they haven't seen her in 5 days. He also reviewed surveillance footage from around the city, but found absolutely nothing. It's as if Ellie vanished off the face of the earth. Detective Brophy tells Kira that he looked through Ellie's social media accounts and discovered that her classmates had been bullying her. Based on that, he suggests that Ellie might have taken her own life because of what she was going through. But Kira doesn't believe this theory. She returns home more determined than ever to find out the real reason behind her daughter's disappearance. Once home, she asks her son Steven if anything unusual happened the night Ellie went missing. Steven tells her that they found an old gramophone, and inside it was a record. When they played it, they heard a man speaking in a strange language, like he's casting a spell or saying some kind of ritual. Kira heads down to the basement with a UV flashlight, hoping to spot Ellie's footprints and figure out whether she ever came back up, but instead, she's shocked to find numbers written in Latin on each step of the staircase. She also notices a strange symbol on the floor, some sort of ritual circle, and when she shines her light on the wall, horrifying drawings suddenly appear, hidden beneath the surface. Kira immediately calls the police. When the detective arrives and sees the symbols, he downplays everything, saying they're probably just old drawings left by a previous tenant. He asks Kira if she knows anything about the house's history, since it looks like it could date back to the 1950s. Brian, her husband, replies that they bought the house at a public auction. He explains that the former owner was a woman named Rose, who was in a rush to sell it so she could afford care at a nursing home. After the detective leaves, Kira grows more worried. Her fear deepens, and she becomes convinced that something truly unnatural is happening inside this house. Kira goes to the bathroom and tries calling Ellie's phone, hoping she might answer. But suddenly, she hears Ellie's voice, counting the basement steps. What's even stranger is that the sound seems to be coming from the pipes. Frightened, Kira decides to go back down into the basement to find out where the voice is coming from. As she opens the basement door, she accidentally kicks a small ball with her foot. The ball rolls down the stairs, and Kira listens closely. The sound just keeps going, as if the staircase has no end, which makes no sense, since the basement only has 10 steps. At that moment, Kira decides not to go into the basement that night. Later, she discovers that odd symbols are drawn on the doors of every room in the house, which only deepens her suspicions. The next day, Kira takes photos of all the symbols drawn on the doors around the house. She gives them to her co-worker, Erica, and asks her to look into their meaning. After doing some research, Erica discovers that the symbols are written in Hebrew, and they refer to Leviathan, a legendary sea creature in Jewish mythology. Kira returns home, eager to learn more about this mysterious being. She decides to play the old gramophone again, the same one Ellie had used on the night she disappeared. Meanwhile, her young son Steven is sitting in his room, playing video games. Suddenly he stands up and starts counting, out loud, all the way to 25. Then, the closet door swings open by itself. Steven walks toward it and stands still, like he's under some kind of spell, as if something has taken control of him. Kira walks in to check on him, and she's shocked to hear him still counting up to 25. But just as suddenly, he snaps out of it. He tells her he was just playing and doesn't remember anything that happened. Trying not to panic, Kira brushes it off for now. She starts researching John Featherstone, the man who originally owned the house, and finds out he was a university professor in the mathematics department, who vanished along with his entire family, leaving behind no trace. Suddenly, the power goes out again. Kira hears Steven calling her from the basement, asking her to open the door. She rushes over, but the handle is jammed, and the key is missing. When she leans down to look through the gap, she's shocked to see a strange eye staring back at her from the other side. Right at that moment, Steven appears behind her. He was never in the basement to begin with. Then, the door swings open on its own. Kira steps inside to see who opened it, but the door slams shut behind her. Steven tries to open it but fails. Inside the basement, Kira hears horrifying sounds, screams echoing from deep within, like a crowd of people crying out in fear. Her phone falls from her hand in terror, and she begs Steven to open the door any way he can. Brian arrives just in time and manages to get the door open. Shaken, Kira tells him everything and says she's now certain Ellie is still down there, and something truly unnatural is hiding in this house. Probably something monstrous, something that lives in the basement. Of course, Brian doesn't believe a word Kira says. He heads down to the basement to look for her phone, but it's nowhere to be found. Instead, he discovers a lock of hair lying on the ground. The next day, Kira visits the mathematics department at the university, where Dr. John Featherstone, the original owner of the house, used to work. There, she meets Dr. Remy Fournier, a brilliant mathematician known for his genius. She shows him the strange symbols she found on the basement floor, hoping he might recognize them. To her surprise, Remy tells her it's not a spell at all, but a highly complex mathematical equation that points to the existence of a hidden world in another dimension. He explains that he's tried solving this equation many times before, but always failed, because he still doesn't know whether it leads to just one hidden world or multiple realms across different dimensions. He asks Kira to leave her phone number with him, promising to contact her immediately if he's ever able to crack the code. Kira returns home and inserts her SIM card into a new phone, only to find that Dr. Remy had tried calling her multiple times. When she calls him back, he explains that the equation is incomplete, which is why he hasn't been able to solve it. Then he reveals something even more disturbing. The exact same equation was found carved into the floor of an old house in Belgium, where an entire family vanished without a trace. Kira rushes to explain everything to Brian, telling him about the strange symbols in the house and the mathematical equation that seems to point to a hidden dimension. Meanwhile, Their son Stephen is playing alone in his room when he suddenly sees his sister Ellie inside his closet, but her face is horribly distorted, like a decaying corpse. Terrified, he screams, prompting Kira and Brian to rush in. Stephen tells them he just saw Ellie in the closet. Brian opens the door and finds it completely empty, except for one chilling detail. Ellie's phone is lying there on the floor. At that moment, Brian finally realizes the truth. Something truly unnatural is happening in their home. Kira decides to visit the nursing home where Rose, the daughter of John Featherstone, the house's original owner, now lives. When they meet, Kira tells her everything that happened to Ellie and how her daughter vanished without a trace. To Kira's shock, Rose reveals the truth. The strange symbols on the bedroom doors don't point to Leviathan, as Kira had assumed. Instead, they refer to one of the 7 kings of hell. Rose explains that her father summoned this entity in a desperate attempt to heal her younger brother, who was gravely ill at the time. But during the ritual, something went terribly wrong, and the entire family disappeared from the house. Because Rose happened to be staying with her aunt that day, she was the only one who survived, and the only one left. She warns Kira that the house doesn't just exist in the real world, it's connected to another hidden realm, and the basement isn't the only gateway to hell. The entire house is a portal to this dark world. Kira rushes back home to check on Brian and Stephen, but to her surprise, Brian has managed to crack the meaning of the strange symbols scattered around the house. He discovers that John Featherstone designed the entire house as a gateway, meant to help him communicate directly with the devil. Meanwhile, young Stephen is playing with his drone, but suddenly loses control of it. The drone starts flying on its own and heads straight down into the basement. Stephen follows it inside to retrieve it, but he suddenly senses that someone, or something, is standing next to him. Then, without warning, the basement door slams shut behind him, and he screams for help. Kira and Brian hear his terrified screams and rush to the basement, only to find that Stephen has completely vanished. Moments later, they hear his voice coming from upstairs, from his room. He's counting, out loud, all the way to 25. They race to his room and find him standing inside his closet. Brian pulls him out, only to discover a terrifying sight. There's a large pentagram, the symbol of the devil, drawn across Stephen's chest. Suddenly, Stephen begins to speak in strange, unsettling words. His body tenses up in violent convulsions, and he completely loses control of himself. And in a terrifying turn, Kira watches in shock as her husband, Brian, also slips into a trance, then stares at her and says, "The devil is here." A horrifying sound echoes from the basement. Kira tries to run, but she's stopped in her tracks. Standing right in front of her is a monstrous goat-like creature. She bolts into the basement, desperate to escape. There, she sees something impossible. The stairs have multiplied, far more than before. She keeps descending until she finally reaches a door. But when she opens it, she finds herself in hell. Lifeless, soulless people walk in a long line as if under a spell. Kira searches frantically among them, and at last, she finds Ellie. She grabs her and rushes to escape, but the devil chases close behind. In the chaos, she drops her flashlight, but she manages to outrun him and climb back up through the basement. Breathless and shaken, she emerges into the house, holding Ellie tightly. Her daughter is back, safe, and finally free from the devil's grip. Kira quickly gathers her family, ready to leave the house after finally rescuing her daughter, Ellie. But just as they're about to escape, something stops her cold. She sees her flashlight lying on the floor inside the house. She's certain it fell in hell. A deep sense of dread creeps in. Kira walks slowly to the front door, opens it, and freezes in shock. Before her is a staircase, long, endless, stretching upward into darkness. That's when the horrifying truth hits her. The entire house has been pulled into hell. She and her family are now part of the long line of missing families, trapped forever in this cursed place. There's no way out, no hope of ever returning to the real world. Thanks for watching, and if you're still here, make sure to like, subscribe, and stick around. The movies are far from over. See you in the next one.